All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Plurilock LinkedIn live show that we're calling the 12 Days of Cyber Christmas. Welcome to the show, Michael Argast, CEO of Cobalt.io. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Yeah, we actually, people might not believe it. They might be watching this afterwards or right now jumping on live, and they might think, man, these guys must have coordinated for a long time on the hats that they're wearing because they look so good and festive. But we actually didn't. Michael just knew that it was appropriate for him to wear that hat, and I appreciate it.
It's the Christmas season. I actually went around trying to find my Santa hat, but all I got was my reindeer. But
Well,
it's all good.
that's good that you only got the reindeer. It's like the Technicolor reindeer at some type of dance party. It's very epic. I have a feeling you might have worn that to a party or two in the past.
In the past, yeah, for sure.
So we got Santa and his reindeer, but we're going to be talking about cybersecurity today, going into the holidays, going into 2022 particularly. But first, why don't you just give a quick introduction to yourself and your company Cobalt, and to the people who are watching who might not know who you are.
Sure. So my name's Michael Argast. I've been in cybersecurity for about 20 years. Prior to starting Cobalt, I ran various security teams at TELUS and Sophos globally. Cobalt.io has been around for 3 years, and we've worked with about 200 small to mid-size tech firms, primarily helping them achieve security so that they could be successful selling to their clients, enterprise and governments typically. So a lot of SaaS, B2B, SaaS, health tech, fintech companies, other sort of technology startups. So, and it's a great to talk to anybody about cybersecurity. I'm a big evangelist of doing things right, and looking forward to talking about the cybersecurity elves. So,
the cybersecurity elves. That's hilarious. Who would you say the cybersecurity elves are?
I've been doing my own little kind of posts around Christmas and talking about all the great things that cybersecurity elves bring us. Everything from multi-factor authentication to CVSS scores to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. I consider the cybersecurity elves those people who are working to make the industry a better place and make our jobs a lot easier. So,
yeah. Well, hopefully I'm
yeah,
one of those by hosting the show with my Santa hat.
for sure.
That's great. That's awesome to have Cobalt.io part of the British Columbia, specifically cybersecurity community here. If you don't know, both Plurilock and I guess Cobalt are primarily based out of the west coast of Canada, which is I consider a privilege. It's awesome being here. So yeah, how was 2021 for you, Michael, and for your company, as kind of from a cybersecurity defense standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, from a business perspective, it's been fantastic. Another record year of growth for us. A lot of it's been our choice of customer segment. Tech firms have continued to do well despite the pandemic and everything. I've been, one of the things I've been really enjoying and looking forward to for next year is the chance to actually get to put together with people in person again. Although I went to an event last night, I'm not sure I still know how to social. It's like one of those things where my skills have gotten a little bit rusty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a busy year. So obviously with everybody moving distributed and virtual, a lot of increase in cybersecurity threats, which we help protect our customers against. But the high tech firms and the kind of online SaaS firms have seen an explosion as everybody's kind of increasingly moved digital, and so that's been a great opportunity for us to help them out.
Yeah, it's great to hear. And where there's opportunity, there's also it's for both sides, right? Like there's more opportunity for the bad guys clearly in 2021, well 2020. We're into going to almost like the third year of the pandemic here. It's crazy. There's opportunity for also companies to evolve their workforce, which they've done or they've been forced to do, and then now they're also able to evolve their security posture as well, which you guys are a part of, and we're a part of here at Plurilock as well. So that's great. Reading the news, obviously, throughout 2021, I was just reading recently that 2021 was the kind of the worst year for cyber breaches and cyber criminal activity that we've seen. Do you feel like that trend is going to get better in any time in the near future, or should companies really just be concerned about shoring up their defenses going into 2022?
I think companies need to continue to invest in their defenses, and probably the most worrying indicator of that trend is it's increasingly difficult to get cyber insurance. And so if you think about anybody who's going to have a strong opinion about whether or not you need to get cybersecurity insurance, and whether or not they have plans that can pay out effectively. They have a lot of data, the cybersecurity insurance firms, and the fact that they're increasingly reluctant to issue policies, or they're putting caps on policy sizes and all this kind of stuff, is a good indication of where that industry thinks the trends are going. And certainly we haven't seen things slow down. The criminals continue to make tons of money, and so that obviously warrants them continuing to launch attacks. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. We chatted about that with on the show yesterday as well. So that's why I had the banner ready. But yeah, if you're watching here, I'd love to hear your thoughts on cybersecurity insurance, because it's a big topic, and there is, I think, some changes from what I've seen and heard happening with Luigi, who we had on yesterday, said just because you want cybersecurity insurance now doesn't mean you qualify for it based on your.
Yeah, and they're doing their own security assessments now, which was like before it was a questionnaire, or now it's more technical. And there's a lot of increasing maturity and robustness, because they've had to pay out a ton of money, and they don't like to pay out a lot of money. And so
right.
insurance providers like to collect checks, not issue checks. And so that's been a big trend.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you find, when you talked about how Cobalt helps small, medium-sized businesses or enterprises get compliance for those types of things, what do you find is like the biggest barrier for companies wanting to start that process of getting compliant? Is it like, are they concerned about price? Are they concerned about how much time it's going to take, time resources it's going to take away from their kind of business objectives? And do you feel like those things are maybe more scary as it seems to them than there actually are? Like, is it as costly as people might think it is?
Yeah. I mean, I would say in the past, the financial issue has been a big area of concern for a lot of small and mid-sized businesses. And frankly, there haven't been a lot of service providers like ourselves focused on that area. Most focus on enterprise for good reason. They have lots of deep pockets to issue checks. But frankly, it's not usually a cost issue. At least when we're talking to customers, it's usually a time and resource issue, right? So how do we actually engage? How do we find the resources to work on the problem? We don't know where to get started. We've got other pressing issues and priorities that we need to focus on first, right? Like getting our product out the door or getting that next deal. And so it's been more of an issue around just resources, especially if you think about small and mid-sized firms. They're short-staffed. They have limited IT. They have all these sorts of challenges that make it really difficult for them to actually engage. But that's kind of our job, is to make that whole thing easier for them.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like, I'm not on a compliance side. I've never been in a compliance side of a business or anything, but to me, it's like, if you don't have the time resources and you're able to have a partner like Cobalt come alongside, you kind of probably see yourself as taking the weight off and actually saving the money down the road.
Oh, right? Yeah, like, no, for sure. I mean, frankly, our whole thing is, we enable you to achieve security for a fraction of the cost of hiring a full-time employee. We help you address compliance, all this kind of stuff. And so I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch, but there are solutions for small and mid-sized businesses out there. Usually the time to start is early rather than later, when you've already been breached or had a compromise or had something that damages your business.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and it's just interesting for me to even hear about those types of things, because I'm we're passionate about cybersecurity here at Plurilock as well, and there is so many willing people like you who have made a really efficient solution for small and mid-sized businesses that they might not know about. So that's good to know. People who are tuning in, write in the comment section below this video what you think of Michael and I's hat. Who's better? And just rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Going into 2022, what do you think are going to be, if you kind of just take like your high level look at where the cybersecurity landscape is right now, of what defenses are available to companies out there, where do you think the most ground is going to be taken up in 2022? If you just had to guess it, as far as like technology, like what types of technology are going to make the biggest advances in the next year?
Yeah. So a couple things that I would highlight. One of them is the migration to the cloud is largely underway or complete for a lot of organizations. And so what that enables is a rethink of how organizations design and implement security, right? And so it feels like kind of zero trusty type of architectures have finally had their day, and that increasingly organizations are kind of doing that thing even though they don't necessarily realize it. And so that's a big shift, right, from traditional on-premise data to cloud-based data, and thinking about that management of data holistically. And from a technology perspective, that means kind of making sure your endpoints are properly secure, because that's still an area of vulnerability, but making sure that you're implementing and monitoring your cloud services effectively as well. One of the biggest risks always is people kind of fully trust their cloud providers to do everything for them, which is not too bad if you're a SaaS provider, but not great if you're an IaaS provider like an AWS and Azure. You still have a lot of responsibilities. So
yeah, like with I don't know what the stats are, but like most or a big majority or a big percentage of the companies using AWS or services like that to store all their data. It's like I've heard a lot of other people, and it sounds like you're saying the same thing, like managing where that data is and like what, I guess, like protocols or protections you have in place there. If something were to go wrong, what are the next steps? Like having a playbook kind of for that
yeah,
type of
and
thing
a lot of
is important.
organizations understand like how they did security in the old world, right? And then they make the transition to the cloud, and they don't really understand like what are the implications of cloud security, what are the things that they need to do differently. AWS makes it really easy to stand up all sorts of great services, right? S3 storage and spot instances and microservices and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of security implications behind all those different choices, and AWS gives you a lot of sharp knives to play with, but people end up cutting themselves, unfortunately. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So you think the data management and cloud, I guess like cloud migration is
cloud
going to be a
security
big.
management, cloud compliance becomes really, really important. And most organizations, a lot of who we deal with, SaaS providers, they have their core infrastructure in the cloud, so that's what they care about. But increasingly, like even classic businesses, they've migrated most of their workloads into the cloud. They've, before it might have been in a data center behind firewalls and IPS systems, and in the cloud, they haven't necessarily figured out all the architectural considerations. And so there's just a lot of things to do differently as it relates to securing that data. So, first principles still apply, but there's a lot of risks
Totally.
and stuff like that. The other thing I want to hit on is the kind of untalked about security threat that is hitting everybody. Everybody talks about ransomware. Everybody talks about data breaches. There's not nearly as much conversation about email business compromise kind of stuff, which is people coming in, taking over email accounts and conducting wire transfer fraud. And it's kind of the silent killer. It's one of those things that just lurks in the background and hits a tremendous number of businesses. And the reason you don't talk about it is the business might write off 50 or 100 or $200,000 as a result of one of these transfer losses, but it's not a data breach. It's not a ransomware that shuts down the business, so it doesn't hit the press.
Right.
But increasingly, when we talk to small and mid-sized businesses, a huge amount of the inbound is not ransomware or that type of attack, but one of these email compromises where their system's been compromised. Attackers have been lurking in their environment for 6-8 months even, and then they've taken a whole bunch of financial assets out of their company at an inopportune time. And so I'm trying to give that as much attention as I can, because from a numbers perspective, it's more prolific than ransomware today, but doesn't get nearly the media attention.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like I haven't heard that much about it. And you're calling it bio transfer.
I mean, you'll hear
attacks.
it referred to as CEO fraud, business email compromise. There's a number of different things, but there's an attack pattern that's fairly common, which is attackers will compromise an email system. It could be your Office 365 or G Suite by compromising an account of an administrator.
Yep.
They then move laterally within that environment. They create a bunch of rules so that you don't see their activity. And they will lurk in that for 6-8 months to watch the interactions between suppliers and vendors and your financial staff. And then at a time when they'll register fake domain names that look like a supplier's domain or like your domain, and they'll insert a communication into a thread of communication that's already been going on to redirect a transfer payment. And the thing is, there's a pattern of attack here and a sophistication that is fairly high, similar to the ransomware attacks, which are fairly sophisticated these days. But it's also very widespread. Like I'm seeing a lot of small, mid-sized businesses hit by fairly sophisticated, determined, persistent attackers, and it's just not getting attention.
Well, that's it. Well, thank you for bringing attention to that, because I personally haven't heard about that as much. That's kind of that's in my scope of what I think of like a cybersecurity incident would be, obviously.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that it was just as big as data breaches or as cost wise. And yeah, like, so I guess that's super interesting. And I'm trying to think about like a way that, Joel Eng, who's our solutions architect here at Plurilock, he actually gave a presentation on like how those types of attacks actually kind of happen, where it's like,
Yeah.
they get in by, having a compromised credential, and then they get into the system, and then they move laterally. Not to make this about Plurilock at all, but anything, but like being able to detect the identities of the users on your Office 365 applications or anything like that that's happening in your system is key to preventing those types of attacks. Because if it was your your CFO's account, but it was being used by somebody else, there's tools out there like Plurilock. We're not maybe not the only ones, but we do it pretty well, that are able to just tell based on how they do things that it's not the right person. And you're saying that
Yeah.
there's a ton of attacks that just happen like that, which is
There's a lot
brutal.
of identity authentication type of visibility that a tool like Plurilock or a lot of other tools would be able to provide and reduce that risk substantially. And the whole lurking thing that the attackers are doing, I mean, Plurilock with your continuous authentication of users, fundamentally, the way the attackers are doing it is, the legitimate user is using the account still, but they are in there surreptitiously also connected to the account and able to pull in the information and the data at the same time. And so that type of authentication visibility is critically important for preventing these types of attacks.
Yeah. That's I think that's a big theme. If I was going to say a theme going into 2022, it'd be like companies are still trying to get better visibility onto their workforce that is hybrid or fully remote or whatever now. And I think that's a huge strategy that people need to be really thinking about doing.
I think I agree, especially if you think about distributed applications, SaaS, all this kind of stuff. Identity and authentication remain key pillars to effective security, visibility, and monitoring. And so, it's useful for a variety of reasons, but with our security monitoring services, it's one of the key things that we look at, and it's one of the things that I think most organizations need to, it's probably more important in some ways than just like malware on a laptop or something like that, right? Because what users are doing in your environment can tell you a lot about risks.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. So that's great. Focus on that going forward. Businesses who may be watching this, 12. I think this is the 5th day of Cyber Christmas. I'm not sure actually. I'm losing track here. But anyways, Michael, if people want to get in contact with you or the Cobalt.io services that you provide, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I mean, the name is the domain, so www.cobalt.io is a great place to visit our website and see our services. You can reach me, Michael, at same domain. Pretty easy, and we'd love to talk to you about your cybersecurity programs and how we can help you take effort off of your internal team so that they can focus on product and services and solutions and get security taken care of for you.
Hey, that sounds pretty good in a time when the workforce is limited and there is a labor shortage. Use external people like Michael and his team. So thanks for joining the show. If you make sure you follow us on the Plurilock page on LinkedIn to not miss future episodes of this. We have some other really smart and interesting people like Michael coming on the show. Thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow and Thursday and Friday with some more shows. Talk to everyone later. Have a great rest of your week, and Merry Christmas to everyone watching.
Happy holidays, everyone.